spaces, never knowing all the places we'll go. Hello. Hello, Whitefish. So our EP just came out. It's called A Mountain to Go. This next song we're going to play is not on it. It's actually brand new, so we have not recorded it yet. We're going to play it today for you. It's called Let the Mystery Be. Every line across my skin, when every answer's 10 more questions, and all my dreaming takes a toll. Well, I'm a map with no direction, and I'm scared of letting go. Let the wind carry me. Let the mystery be. Lying paralyzed by silence, it's the ghost of my mistakes. Always been the kind to hedge my bets when I'm halfway through the race. All this time's been moving forward while I'm looking back behind at the many miles of turns I miss, always searching for a sign right in front of me. Let the mystery be. Well, I'm tired of being defeated by a second-guessing soul. All this history repeated, 'cause I'm scared of letting go. Yeah, there's something in me burning, something I might never name. I am lost, but I am learning. I'm a dancer in the flame. Let the mystery be. In every train of homebound strangers, and all the rivers of taillights, a million hearts are moving through the dark towards a glimmer in the night, the light we cannot see. mystery be?
This is a kind of John Prine-esque song about growing old with somebody and not losing that spark. And it's the last song on our EP, A Mountain to Go. Youth, they say, is squandered on the young. That's why they call it youth, my son. When you're old, you're wise. Some say fire inside your heart dies, but not in mine.
Love's the higher law, but we are wild. All's fair in love and war, my child. Hearts beat black and blue, and every now and then they break in two, but not with you. 'Cause after all the years blow by, your eyes will still make me feel high through the ballroom haze of bygone days. And one day we'll smile and tell of singing songs and ringing bells when all our hair turns gray.
Life is not a game of win or lose.
Not every choice is yours to choose.
Hope's too long to list. You take your swings, and half the time you miss.
But that's not this. 'Cause after all the years blow by, your eyes will still make me feel high, and we'll kiss the ghost of yesterday. And one day we'll smile and tell of singing songs and ringing bells when all our hair turns gray. And reach for me when
You begin to fear your heart might start to disappear.
and hold me near. All we have and ever did and ever will is always right now and right here.
Time's a river flowing through this world, and it only runs one way, sweet girl.
Winding aimlessly and leading to an ocean we can't see. So swim with me. 'Cause after all the years blow by,
Susan, Nick, Big Sky City Lights, thank you for coming and helping christen this new space for Hello Whitefish.
Oh,
Feels
we're
so
honored. It's so-
special. We're the first.
And what's cool about having you guys in here is you guys did our theme song,
That's right.
which was, you guys hit it out of the park.
It reminded me of like a Blind Melon riff a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But
So you guys have a really interesting origin story. You guys were born out of COVID, right? Mm-hmm. And you kind of, like a lot of people kind of had to pivot, especially musically. A lot of artists had to kind of figure out how they were going to do their craft.
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about how that all started and how you kind of used the power of Zoom and remote technology to kind of make music together?
Well, at the time when the pandemic started, I was in New York City in my one-bedroom apartment, and Nick was here. And we were both kind of sitting on our heels because all of our gigs got canceled, trying to figure out what to do. And I had known for a while that Nick was the kind of person that would get stuff done. He's such a creator, and I wanted to work with other creators, and we had collaborated in different ways in the past, but never one-on-one. So I actually reached out to him, and I asked him if he wanted to collaborate on something.
and I said, yeah, like I think you suggested who suggested the first song we did?
It was me. I suggested Indigo Girls because I had done it with our dear friend Amelia for a concert, and Nick came up to both of us while we were rehearsing one day, and he said, you're playing that guitar part wrong. So I knew he knew the song, and I wanted to do something positive.
How
for
German.
I was just about to say how German. Yeah.
And so we.
This guitar part is not correct.
Yeah.
So because I knew he knew the song, and I wanted to do something positive, that's the first one we did.
And then we put it up on Facebook. At that time was the only social media outlet that we really put it up on, and everyone really, I think, was craving connection in that time, like we all were, and they really liked the sound, and it was a surprisingly great vocal blend. I think unexpectedly for us too, because though we'd done holiday concerts together, we were always in a bigger group, or we were never paired just one-on-one, and just our voices in isolation, if you listen to them, it doesn't seem like they would blend very well, which is interesting because they really do. And then everyone said, do more. So we did more.
Yeah. I think the humanity of what we were doing also is what people connected to at that time. They got a kick out of me sitting in my bathtub and Nick in his closet. And so I think that just that raw kind of making it work energy is really what kind of launched what we do.
Yeah, and as far as the technological aspect, I said, yeah, I'll lay down my part and I'm going to video myself while I do it. And then I'll send what I did to you and treat me like a karaoke track and film yourself singing along to me. So I would lay down, in the beginning, the first part, sing it to the camera, and then send the whole thing to her, and she would film herself while singing. And then she'd send hers back to me, and I'd stitch them together, and we'd put it out. And that's how it went. Because there's no way to do it at the same time because it's hitting a satellite. It's going to space.
Yeah.
Like you can't, it takes time. So yeah, that's how we did it. And we just kept doing it every Friday.
Incredible. How cathartic just to have that practice, like being in a band and playing music, just having band practice is just so therapeutic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love that. And just to have the technology to be able to do that is just so mind-blowing. I remember when the band Postal Service came out. Do you guys remember
I
Postal
love
Service?
Postal Service.
And they were the first to kind of do that because that was kind of the idea.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah.
Death Cab for Cutie, and I forget the other guy, but they just go back and forth sending tracks and stuff. I think what also, no pun intended, really resonates with me was the fact that you guys do the duet really well. And I think when people, that really just, again, no pun intended, strikes a chord with people. And when you hear a really solid duet, like, you hear Fleetwood Mac and they're just like the kings and queens of doing duets. Can you talk about like your musical process?
We have a really interesting intersect of the kind of music we connect on. And so we always had a similar aesthetic. I don't know, you should talk about that probably.
Well, we intersect, right? Because we're from different generations and we grew up on different sides of the country. And so our musical influences are definitely different, but we do connect on a quality and a style of a sound that we both love. And as far as the process of how we create things, it's really grown over the years. You know, we wrote our first record together in one spot. And then the second record we wrote separately, kind of tossing it back and forth. But a lot of times we have no set way. So sometimes if we're together and there's an idea, we'll just kind of knock it out. I've always loved harmony. So I really resonate with that sound. And also just melodies. I'm always looking for a melody that's going to stick. And Nick always comes in with some really interesting and unique guitar part that I could have never thought of. And it kind of just, and then as far as lyrically, it's kind of a toss up, you know, just kind of a back and forth dialogue really between us.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the intersectionality of millennial Gen X. It's interesting because there is more intersect than you would think. Like if you're millennial and you're into like, I don't know, you're on the cusp and you're like PJ Harvey. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Susie. There would be no PJ without Susie Sue. To know that, be like, I can connect there. If you're like, well, I really got into Nirvana. And I'm like, great, I was into Jane's Addiction. It was way more avant-garde and less pop. Here's what I think. And I'm, very opinionated. But there's always an intersectionality of that kind of a thing. You know, you're super into like 90s because when you were a tiny kid and you kind of missed it by the time you came online musically, it was like, oh, it's over. I was the same way with the 80s. Like I graduated from high school and the 80s were long over and I was just getting into like, oh my gosh, Bauhaus, they broke up in 1983 and they're like amazing, So a lot of people do that. They feel like there's music of your time and then there's the music you just missed right before that you can go down a rabbit hole. Mm-hmm. Like I missed the Pixies kind of, but they're amazing to go back through,
Yeah, we do that a lot. We rediscover each other's music. I have a theory that most people's musical influence comes from when the first song they fall in love with when they're about 12 or 13 and they come online.
What was yours?
Alanis Morissette. But was the first record that I played over and over again on my boombox and was just confused and like completely alive for the first time.
12, 13, interesting. Like my aunt bought me Synchronicity by the Police, but I never played it really.
Yep.
Even though it's an amazing album. But I think the first cassette and the first song was A Million Miles Away by the Plimsolls.
Oh, that's amazing.
Which is such a good song. It's just like nothing but guitars and drums and bass, and it's like not really normal.
Oh, the era of tape too. I think I found a tape that belonged to my sister who's 10 years older than me. It was Surfer Rosa by the Pixies. Mm-hmm. And I remember just putting it on just because I was bored and I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. And that just opens the door. And I don't know what it is about 12 and 13, that age. Maybe it's just you're just kind of growing into yourself.
And you can make sorry.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
And you can make really lifelong friends at that age too. I think you're just somehow open, something to do with that right at the cusp of puberty. Mm-hmm. You just kind of open yourself up to new friendships, new ideas. And it's the first time I got that far away feeling when I looked, out beyond a bunch of city lights of like, what will my life be?
Yeah, your brain is connecting yourself as an individual, I think, for the first time. And so what you like and don't like outside of your parents and this childlike existence that you have is finally starting to shape outside of them. So
yeah, like I think like you have the whole old what's your first concert question.
Yes.
And you're like, the Kingston Trio at the zoo with your parents doesn't count.
Right.
Because everybody has that, and you don't count it as your first concert. First concert. What was your first concert?
Stone Temple Pilots.
Oh, damn.
In Missoula.
Oh,
this was
wow.
92, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was interesting because my cousin was married to the drummer at the time, so we got like free tickets and stuff. So it was an interesting connection. But I was super into Stone Temple Pilots. So
yeah, I was in a garage band in San Diego. And Stone Temple Pilots they used to be a band called Mighty Joe Young
Oh yeah,
in San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
And then they moved. And we used to practice where the guitar player from Stone Temple Pilots, his best friend ran like a band practice storage facility, basically. And we were the only band in there one night. And my ex-drummer just reminded me of this the other day. He's like, remember when we were there and that guy was out on the couch from Mighty Joe Young and Eric was playing that guitar riff, and then we were packing up and leaving and he was in his rehearsal studio and he was playing Eric's guitar riff and it ended up on Stone Temple Pilots' album. And I was like, I do remember that. I forgot.
Wow.
So they stole a guitar riff from me.
Oh my God.
Truly. I had like forgotten. I was like, oh yeah, that's right.
Man.
What was your first concert?
The first one I remember individually is Brandi Carlile. I saw her when way back,
Nice.
like almost 20 years ago. And but the first concert I ever went to with my parents was Meatloaf. Can't forget Meatloaf. Yeah.
My first one with my parents was, in fact, the Kingston Trio at San Diego Wild Animal Park, now called Safari Park. And then my first one by myself, and this is the best one ever, Oingo Boingo.
Oh, wow.
I saw Danny Elfman in his band.
Wow.
Yeah, that's
That's incredible.
I always win this game. I always say Oingo Boingo, and people who know and go, what? I'm like, yep.
Wow.
Cool.
That's pretty amazing.
It's a good one. And I think it rubbed off on me, the whole psychotic factor.
Yeah. So it's interesting then because your music is kind of timeless in a way. Like there's so many genres now that people are fitting into, which is fine. You know, we're just in this kind of very Western folk country, new country vibe that's kind of going on. And you guys fit into that, but that's not who you guys are. And I love that, like, your music is just your music. And that's so incredible in this day and age when I think, you know, this is just the era that we're in. It was 90s was kind of grunge coming out of the 80s, hair metal. What was the early aughts? I feel like that was kind of indie with some
Definitely
French house, kind of like EDM started to get popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's...
The early aughts always make me think of the Garden State soundtrack.
Oh,
yeah, like there's a
completely.
couple like early shins. Yeah, like there are some good, and in any like decade or time, there's exceptions, but I think the overarching vibe of the early aughts was horrible. No, I
tell
think
me how you really feel.
we were lost in Moby and Dido.
Yeah.
And it was like the sound of the sound was horrible because there was the loudness wars in recording where if you take anything recorded in the early aughts and you try to crank it, it sounds like crap. Because everyone was trying to get louder. And what's pleasing to us is the difference between quiet parts and loud parts. Whereas if you take an album like Love by The Cult, the louder you turn it up, the better it sounds. Whether or not you like AC/DC Back in Black, the louder you turn that up, the better it sounds. You can't get it to sound bad. Yeah. And that's not true of anything from the aughts. So artistic integrity aside, those recordings don't sound good anymore. Yeah. Unless they were indie. Because like the Garden State soundtrack sounds good. It's like if you had, that's I think why the indie stuff has lasted from the early aughts. It sounds better.
Yeah, it was a huge indie scene. That's what I remember.
Especially in New York, where you're at now, it's like you had Interpol, the Strokes,
LCD Sound System. We just saw them in New York.
Oh, awesome.
With Nation of Language, which was awesome.
Yeah, They were also really amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. So the scene in Whitefish is interesting. What's your commentary on the music scene in Whitefish? And to give you some context, like this music scene that I grew up with in Whitefish, the very first show I went to in Whitefish actually had a pretty good underground punk rock scene.
Wow.
I remember my first concert was when I was 12, going to what is now Lula's. Back then it was the Masonic Temple, to see band Disgruntled Nation from Missoula, a couple punk rock bands from Canada. But there was always, every weekend, there was like these like skate punk bands coming through Whitefish, playing the Palace and stuff.
Wow.
And so it's interesting to see how it's grown. That's why people move to Montana and think, oh, it's this beautiful country western state, but it actually has kind of a weird underbelly too, a kind of a counterculture aspect to it that I kind of miss.
It's not Wyoming.
Right.
Yeah, it's not cowboy. I mean,
it is.
it is, but it's not Yellowstone.
Well, you have the train line right here going from here to Seattle. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
imagine there's a lot of that Northwest influence on this small town.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in general, coming from New York, one of the things that always struck me here is not the style of the music, but the quality of the musicianship.
Yeah.
There are so many people that gravitate towards this place that come from everywhere. All these musicians that are so exceptional.
And photographers.
Yes.
Painters. I mean, just
Yes.
artists.
And there is a community here that wants it and really appreciates and enjoys it. And that's not something that, because New York is so saturated and the city has so many people, it's not something that you see as distilled as you see it here. So it's easier, I think, to really hone in on the musicianship and the artistry of the individuals that come here. And you're able to appreciate it in a different way. So that's kind of what I love about Whitefish.
Oh, love
Yeah.
that.
And I think like what you're talking about, as you're describing it back in the day with all the punk bands coming through, I think Kalispell has that now with like metal. There's like a huge metal scene playing in the Eagles in the basement and EDM. And so in terms of that kind of like dirty underbelly, making it work, that scrappy thing, Kalispell still has that in a big way.
Yep.
It's just not at the Northern on Saturday night. I wish there were more listening room environments.
Agreed.
In Whitefish.
Yeah.
I think that's something you only get in Austin and Nashville, really, in like the way it should be. But
Listening room meaning like sort of like the record store? Or...
yeah, or like just not someone you're playing and there's
Not a
not
bar,
somebody
yeah.
shaking a martini. You're not an
Gotcha.
afterthought. You're not underneath a huge TV with the sporting event on it. You know, and I get it. I mean, you're in a world of, you know, not ticketed entertainment. And look, I love nothing more than being audio wallpaper to somebody who's eating nachos. It's paid practice. It's fine.
That's true.
Sometimes they're into it, sometimes they're not, and I'm not going to get butthurt.
But also,
We're not gonna get butthurt.
But also, it's paid because those listening rooms a lot of time are
Yeah.
$0
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, I think like the crown jewel for any band or duo or whatever, any musical group, is to get that kind of attentive audience, and it's paid.
Oh, yeah.
That's rare. It's so rare. Everywhere it's rare. You know.
And it's hard in a town like Whitefish that is so seasonal, where it's hard for the venues to be able to give you 100% of the door. I mean, some of them do.
Sure.
I think a good job around here of that when they can.
Yeah.
And that's why it's also awesome that, you know, we have Under the Big Sky. That
Yeah.
festival has been pretty remarkable.
Absolutely.
Like when you are a musician and you've been to festivals and you've played festivals and you see how well that one is put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you guys have gotten to play it, which
Yeah,
Twice,
is
yeah.
twice
I think in the world
amazing.
of Montana music producers for big events, I'd pick Johnny Shockey every time.
Yeah.
He's
Yep.
a solid dude, and he has an amazing beef too.
He does.
He's amazing. He's just a solid dude.
Yeah.
You know, he cares. He didn't have to open that up to local acts at all.
Yeah.
And he always does. So, yeah, he's a cool dude. We're lucky to have it.
Yeah. But this kid that he did, and we have you guys, Mike Murray, 20 Grant. I mean, there's just, the list goes on and on.
Oh,
So
yeah.
many good
Incredible
musicians here.
musicians.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
creating
Radio
their own-
Ranch.
Yeah.
Archertown.
Creating their
Archertown.
own music, you know, and doing original works, which is so valuable. You know, a lot of times when, again, coming from the city and touring, they if you want to sell tickets, they want to hear covers, and it's really nice to have a space like Whitefish where they really do seem to appreciate original work.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that takes time to grow an audience. And it takes years, decades, you know, and even just to get people to stop and listen. I think every musician in Whitefish owes their ass to John Dunnigan.
100%.
And Dave Walburn, like those guys, like when I moved here, that's who opened the door to be able to do it.
They built this city.
Oh boy, please do not lump them in with Starship.
Hilarious. What is coming out for you guys? What's new? What's on the horizons?
Well, we just released an EP back at the end of October, and we actually just had a concert to celebrate it last night. So we just got done with a big piece of work that you can stream anywhere. And we're ready for the next thing. So we're going to get back into the writing probably this summer. We're filming something for Montana PBS in the summer as well. So there are things happening, but I think we're back in a creative space, which is nice for a while because the production side of it is awesome.
It's
but
a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift. And we're so glad that this like baby is out there for everybody to listen to. The EP is called A Mountain to Go.
A Mountain to Go.
Yes.
Nice.
And it's everywhere you can stream.
Awesome.